All right, so in lesson 7.1 here, we're going to start off with a graphical representation of the production process. And as I mentioned in the outline, one of the reasons I like to do this is because for some people it helps to have a good visual look at the whole process. Now, this may not be the best way to look at it for you, but in developing this, it really did help me understand the process and what the inputs and outputs were, and really helped me design this workshop. So I'm just going to go over it here with you to get a sense of what we're going to cover and how it fits into this framework. So first of all, in terms of how things are laid out here, that's not supposed to do that. Here we're looking at the different days. So here's what we're doing day 1. Over here is sort of day 1 or 2, day 4 to 5, and then day 9 to 11. So this all depends on the crop that you're growing and the cycle that you've got that crop on. And we've got 4 different types of elements here, basically. 5, I suppose. So the orange ovals represent inputs. So these are things coming into your production system. The blue ovals represent steps in the process. And so obviously those are closely linked. The brown ones look at non-product outputs. So there are things that leave the system that are not your product. And then the green is your end product. And there's kind of 2 end products. One is your microgreens, and the other is your customer. And we'll call that your satisfied customer. Another aspect to consider here is just your infrastructure. And actually, that is the refrigeration that I put in there. Obviously, we could put greenhouse and other stuff in there, but I wanted to keep this a little on the simpler side. So what we're doing is we're starting out with these 4 inputs: soil, trays, seeds, and sanitizer. So we're soaking and sanitizing those seeds and putting them into trays of soil. So this is going to happen on day 1 or day 2, depending on the crop. And those are going to go into germination. And you're really doing nothing. You're sowing and covering the trays and you're leaving them. And you're not doing anything again until day 4 or 5 when you uncover those trays. So uncovering the trays is when germination is going to be complete and the next part of the cycle needs to happen. So that's just when they're growing, basically. So next you're going to get into harvesting. So once the growth is over, your next big event is harvesting. So obviously you're going to get your microgreens as an output here, but your trays are also going to leave the system and your soil is going to leave the system. Now your soil is basically going to go into compost and then another use, or it could go elsewhere depending how you're running your system. And then your trays are going to get washed and go back into your system in order to be used again. With our microgreens, at this point, we're bringing in another input where we're bringing in our containers that are labeled. And then the microgreens are going to refrigeration and then to the customer. So hopefully this gives you a sense of sort of the things you need to consider in terms of the steps you're going to take and the interactions you're going to have with the crop. So this is actually a very generalized overview because there's lots of little things that happen in all these pieces. But I really hope the visual representation just gives you a sense of what your flow is going to look like through a crop cycle. Keep in mind, if you're doing 2 harvests a week, this cycle is going to overlap with another cycle. And I didn't dare try to put that into one diagram for fear of making it much more complicated than it already is. So hopefully this gives you enough of a sense of what that would look like. And you can imagine running this process during a week period. So now that we've looked at the overview, let's start getting into the very specific components of the production process.